Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Dr. Craig Malkin, a clinical psychologist and lecturer for Harvard Medical School. I'm also the author of Rethinking Narcissism, which is devoted to helping you understand and cope with narcissism in all its forms and all your relationships. I did a video recently about how does echoism develop, and this is a follow-up to that in response to a question where somebody asked, well, how do you overcome these patterns? So we're going to talk a little bit of echoism and how to overcome the struggles of echoism. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing by turning the notification bell on so you can see them when they come in. Please consider giving them a thumbs up and commenting so I can do more videos like this. First, an overview of echoism for a lot of people who are new to the concept or haven't been following me regularly or are new to the channel. Echoism, you want to think of as a trait, a survival strategy, an adaptation to a very particular emotional environment where people learn to live rule. Echoists learn to live life by the rule, the less room I take up, the better. They have a fear of seeming narcissistic in any way. Now, the term echoism actually came from the myth of Narcissus. Most people have heard, at least, of Narcissus, the vain Greek youth who fell in love with his own reflection. And of course, Echo is the nymph who was cursed to repeat back the last few words that she heard. And she, in turn, fell in love with Narcissus. And actually, she pined away with unrequited love for him in many versions of the myth to the point where she faded away to nothing but an echo. And that was all that was left of her. And like their namesake, Echo, echoists struggle to have a voice of their own. They often echo the needs and feelings of others because this is how they were shaped in their environment. If you have not seen the video that I did on how echoism develops, please go back and take a look, and I'll probably put a link so that you can do that. But they are shaped around a particular environment, and it leaves them afraid that they will seem narcissistic with even basic gestures of trying to assert themselves. Good things, self-confidence, assertiveness. They fail to self-enhance in the language of the research on what happens in the psychological mechanisms that take place. Self-enhancement is a normal, pervasive human tendency where people who are happy and healthy around the world, this is not just in Western individualist cultures, but around the world, see themselves in an overly rosy way, more positive light than is realistic. And it actually helps people thrive, persist in the face of failure, give and receive in relationships when we fail to self-enhance, as happens with echoism, because they really weren't allowed to do it, and everything kind of gets reined in. Echoists in self-report, in the measure that we developed, agree with statements like, I don't know what I want or need from my relationships, and I'm afraid of becoming a burden. How do you overcome this? Anytime I'm working with somebody who struggles with echoism, I always focus on helping them get in touch with adaptive or healthy disappointment and anger. Because what happens with echoism is very often, whether it was from a narcissistic parent or an echoistic parent who modeled echoism for them, people have been left feeling that they're bad if they dare to say, I don't like this and I didn't like what happened, or if they get angry in any way. In the case of extraordinarily narcissistic parents, it might even begin to feel unsafe. They might actually feel not just emotionally, but physically unsafe, because sometimes extraordinarily narcissistic parents can be abusive and even physically abusive. So now it sets up a feeling of danger around these normal modes of expression, of being able to say, I didn't like this, or point out when there's a feeling of disconnection in the relationship or a need not being met. A big part of echoism is, in fact, tamping down needs to take up as little room as possible. And at the extreme, people with echoism often hate their needs. So the first thing I do is to help people get in touch with that. Inevitably, because of the environments they grew up in, people who struggle with echoism have taken on a voice and made it their own, that they are the problem, that they are at fault, that they are to blame. So the first thing I do is teach people Self-blame is an action, not a feeling. It's something we do to ourselves in response to other feelings to cope with them and particularly to contain them. It is not a feeling in and of itself. So I'm going to invite you to imagine what you would be feeling towards your partner who is insulting or dismissive, or your friend who said something hurtful. What would you feel towards them if you weren't telling yourself you're the problem? We're going to set the self-blame aside and see what feelings come up. If you are not thinking, I am the problem, now what do you feel towards this person? Let's just do it as an experiment. Inevitably, the answer is angry. It might be disappointed, but it's always in that range of anger or disappointment. And now we can create an experience where it is safe to embody those feelings. When I say embody, I mean embody. A part of changing these patterns means really deeply feeling them. So I will ask you, if you're working with me, where do you feel that anger in your body? And, do a tour of body from head to toe, chest, where is it located? Really to let yourself safely experience it, because that is the way to help your nervous system recognize you no longer have to tamp those feelings down. This will help even if you are with a partner or a friend or in a relationship where they don't want to hear it. Maybe they can't hear your disappointment or anger, and that's why the relationship has had to function the way it does. This is for you. That's the take home I always want to help you hold on to. Even if, as is likely, if you've developed patterns of echoism, the person you're with isn't able to receive your healthy expressions of anger and disappointment about what's missing in the relationship, you will benefit by fully experiencing it yourself. I make a distinction between experiencing a feeling and expressing it. You may never bring it to the person about whom that feeling is. What you want is to be able to overcome those reflexive patterns of self-doubt and self-blame that keep all of those normal, healthy feelings in check that should come out in a healthy relationship. That's what you want. And the more you're able to safely feel exactly that depth of anger, and even put some words to it, if you have a therapist to help you with that, the impulse to see yourself as the problem as you were once seen as a problem will weaken. If you repeat that 100 times, it will weaken. And again, this is regardless of whether or not you express it directly to the person about whom you're having the feeling or not, because it's an internal change. And as soon as you've weakened that response, that self-blame, that's an action, not a feeling, you make room for all those other feelings that will help you be clear in yourself. Bear in mind that if you're busy questioning whether or not you have a right to have the feeling, or was I too sensitive, or maybe I'm not being patient enough, if you're having those thoughts, you cannot be in touch in a strong, embodied way with what is missing in the relationship so that you can act on and honor those needs. And that is the first step. Action, in a lot of ways, comes later. First, you have to be clear in yourself that it's okay to have this response. Repeat that over and over again, not thousands of times, but repeat it in large and small ways, maybe 100 times, which is not hard to do over the course of many interactions. And you start to overcome these patterns. So I hope that's been helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. And I welcome you back for the next video. Thank you.